Hey freaks, it's JJ, welcome to my channel. Today is another installment in my Beginner Metalhead series, and today I'll be talking about crowd surfing. So this is basically everything you need to know, hopefully, about crowd surfing, and you know, what to expect if you've never done it before. And yeah, crowd surfing can be a little bit dangerous, so hopefully this quick guide will help you to, you know, stay safe and everything. So first thing to talk about with crowd surfing is basically when and where it happens. So much like I talked about in my mosh pit video, crowd surfing is not always going to be allowed in every concert and every venue. It's just a huge liability for them, so they don't allow it at all. But for the most part, if you're going to an outdoor event, an outdoor concert or festival or something, pretty much crowd surfing is going to be prevalent at most outdoor venues if you're going to a rock or metal concert. So basically, the places where crowd surfing happens a lot is almost anywhere in the crowd, but ideally, you know, when you are choosing to crowd surf, you'll kind of want to do it sort of, I would suggest like in the middle of the crowd. Like I wouldn't suggest starting from the way back, because as soon as you get to spots where the crowd is kind of sparse and not densely packed, then you're going to be at risk for being dropped. So I would definitely suggest you know, starting somewhere at the middle of the crowd and maybe more on like the outskirt edges of the crowd instead of in the very middle, because in the very dead center of the crowd there's going to be probably a lot of mosh pits, and you know, getting crowd surfed into a mosh pit is something that no one wants, because that is, yeah, just a recipe for disaster, basically. Anyway, so there's a few things to know as someone who is not crowd surfing. Like if you're just someone in the crowd and it is a place where there are going to be crowd surfers coming over the top of you, then there's a few things that you should know. First of all, I kind of feel like crowd surfing is more dangerous than moshing sometimes, because crowd surfing, it just, you know, there's legs being, you know, dangling and flying in directions, and sometimes you can get hit in the head with the flailing leg, or someone just launches someone who's crowd surfing. You know, that happens a lot if the crowd isn't densely packed enough for someone to crowd surf, and you know, it's just like one or two dudes who have to like launch the person into the denser part of the crowd. So that gets kind of dangerous, of course, and so you can get injured not crowd surfing, but from a crowd surfer. So try to always be aware of your surroundings wherever you are in the crowd. If you are near the front, it is very helpful, because a lot of the time there will be the security person right up at the barricade, and they will be, you know, standing up and kind of like popping up kind of like, you know, meerkats, and just pointing out the crowd surfers and, you know, making eye contact with them and making sure that they come over safely. So whenever you see that security guard like pop up, you know, if you're on the barricade and he starts looking like above your head, just kind of follow his eyesight and see where he's looking, and then prepare to pass the crowd surfer forward. So if you are closer to the barricade and that, you know, the security person is, you know, pointing people out, that's a good way to tell when a crowd surfer is coming. But if you are farther back in the crowd, you're not going to get that indication, and so sometimes it's just a good idea to just, you know, quite often just look over your shoulder, look around, and just spot out any crowd surfers that might be coming your way. Also, if you see people who are looking over their shoulder and looking in a certain direction that is somewhat near you, it's probably a good idea to also, you know, turn around and look and make sure that you're not going to get, you know, someone like falling on top of your head, you know, from a crowd surfer that you weren't expecting coming, which does happen. Unfortunately, if you are a taller person, it's more likely that you're going to just get your head smashed. If you're a shorter person like I am, sometimes the taller people will kind of cushion the impact of this person. Sometimes the height difference will just make it so that you don't even notice sometimes. But also, if a crowd surfer comes over the top and you're not expecting it, you know, us smaller people can get crushed by these heavy people, because, you know, us smaller people aren't quite as strong as these bigger people, of course. So, yeah, it's kind of a pro and con thing, being short and little, being that sometimes crowd surfers can go right over the top of you, and you don't even really have to help, because the other people, taller people, have it already, and sometimes you can just get clobbered because you're small. So yeah, just try to be aware of the crowd surfers that are coming through the crowd. If you see one coming in your direction or the general vicinity of where you are, try and point them out to the other people who are beside you. If someone is like just really like rocking out and getting into the show, and that person doesn't realize the crowd surfer is coming right at him, try and get that person's attention and, you know, make him aware that there's someone coming and he needs to turn around and, you know, try and make sure he doesn't get clobbered by a crowd surfer. And yeah, the other thing to know is that if you are in a spot that is not densely packed with other people, it can be tough because if people will just kind of randomly crowd surf anywhere and at all times. And so if you are kind of like a crowd surfer comes and you're in an area where it's kind of sparse people wise, it's going to be tough. That person could get dropped if you can't fully carry them. It's best to just kind of be in the more densely packed part of the crowd, just because you have more help carrying the crowd surfer forward than if it's not as densely packed. If you're anywhere near the barricade, you will be probably having a lot of work ahead of you as far as just, that's where all the crowd surfers go, is they go all the way to the front and then they go over the barricade and then security lets them out to go around the back. So yeah, if you're near the barricade, just expect there to be maybe a lot of work that happens, because the security person is going to try and do their best, but you also have to get them to the security person. So yeah, there's a lot of work involved sometimes when it comes to going to a metal show, and sometimes you get a workout in. But yes, be aware of crowd surfers being launched towards you, because sometimes people get rough and just kind of launch them forward, especially if they're a lighter person. And yeah, just be careful of your head and your neck. Just try and be aware of your surroundings, like I said in plenty of my other videos. That will go a long way in keeping you safe from crowd surfers that might be coming over the top of you or, just clobbering you on accident. Okay, so next, I'm going to talk about what you should and shouldn't do if you are the crowd surfer yourself. And so my advice was, like I said in the beginning, was just aim for like starting in the middle of the crowd. Like if you are, just sort of new to crowd surfing, stuff like that, I wouldn't suggest you go a long distance. I would suggest you go a fairly short distance, your first try or your first couple times, just to make sure that you are comfortable with it. Because some people, realize that they don't enjoy crowd surfing. You don't want to have to go the whole entire length of the crowd only to realize that you hate this and you never want to do this again. So just go a short distance your first try, if you decide to do it. And yeah, try not to go over the top of any mosh pits. Try and, just be aware of where the pits are and make sure that your path is not going to go over a mosh pit. Second piece of advice, please, please, please do not flail while you are crowd surfing. Like, I understand, you want to like rock out up top and have a good time. That's fine. You can move your arms and stuff, but like, please, please do not kick your legs. You're just going to end up kicking whoever is trying to hold you in the face, and then they're going to drop you. So please hold your legs still. You can rock out on top and everything, but ideally you'll be in like a plank position and you'll just have like all your muscles stiff. That's like the easiest way to carry someone forward. So if you ever feel like you might be getting dropped, just like tense up all your muscles and like pretend you're planking basically, and that will make it a lot easier for people to move you forward. If you are a woman, and I guess also if you're a man too, it's not only females, but if you're a woman and you are crowd surfing, expect that you will be groped. It's what happens. I wish it wouldn't. Otherwise, I would definitely crowd surf if that wasn't the case. But unfortunately, it is. Guys will just kind of grab your butt, grab your boobs. Some of them, sometimes it is actually to help move you forward. You can't always control where your hands go when someone just comes over the top of you and you have to grab them suddenly. Sometimes you can't really control where your hands go, and so sometimes it is an accident, being touched in certain places. But a lot of the times, men will sometimes just come up and just grab a handful of ass and stuff, just not because they're trying to help move you forward, just because they're trying to cop a feel. So that is quite unfortunate, but it does happen, and I want to let you know that that is something that does take place, just so that you're prepared for crowd surfing. And I guess if you're a guy, I'm sure maybe that happens, but probably not nearly as much as if you're a woman. But yeah, unfortunately, there's not much we can do about that other than just me putting out there the PSA that please don't touch women inappropriately when they're crowd surfing, but I'm sure a lot of people will not listen. So yeah, try and be a gentleman, please, men, ladies, be kind and gentlemanly and stop trying to grope people when they crowd surf. Next up, if you are a beginner crowd surfer, I highly suggest not doing anything crazy. Like, if you're new at this, you're just trying out for the first time, or, you're not 100% comfortable, or maybe this is your first rock festival or rock concert where you're able to crowd surf, please just go one at a time. I see a lot of crazy stuff going on where it's like 2 people go at once and there's this weird like body surfing thing that happens, which is cool. Like, it's cool, but like I wouldn't suggest doing that if you're new to crowd surfing, just because there's so many ways you can get injured doing that. It is kind of annoying if it's like so many people are trying to go at once and there's people who are holding on to other people while both of them are trying to crowd surf at the same time. It does get annoying, but like I can see why it's fun, so I'm not saying like don't do it. I'm just saying maybe not as your first time crowd surfing. Maybe don't try those crazy stunts. Yeah, just, you know, a word of warning, because that people obviously get dropped crowd surfing, and the likelihood of you getting dropped if you're also attached to another person is much more likely. So, yeah, the next thing is when you're crowd surfing, make sure you have a way to hold on to your belongings. I cannot tell you how many times, you know, crowd surf someone over the top and then someone bends down and picks up a cell phone or a wallet and they're like, oh shit, the crowd surfer just dropped this, I don't know what to do with it. So sometimes those belongings can get passed forward all the way up to security, and hopefully that person can pick up their phone or wallet or whatever up there. But, I mean, there's nothing stopping people from, like, you know, getting the phone passed up to them and then just putting it in their pocket or the wallet or whatever it is. So, yes, if you find that a crowd surfer has dropped something, please try and pick it up and pass it forward and tell people to pass it forward up to security. But, yeah, if you are crowd surfing and you lose an item, don't expect to ever get it back, because it's not likely that you will. So make sure, you know, whatever you have, if you have a phone or a wallet, zippered pockets are great because those are less likely to fall out of your pocket, or if you have a friend with you, maybe just ask that friend to hold on to whatever it is you have so that you don't lose it. Hats and stuff come off really easily, so I wouldn't suggest wearing a hat in crowd surfing. Yeah, I don't know, just try and keep your belongings strapped to you pretty well, just as you would if you were moshing. And then another thing I want to talk about, going back to, you know, the security people who help carry the crowd surfers forward and over the barricade. Thanking the security people goes a long way. Like, if you are a crowd surfer, or if you are just one of the people up near the barricade who is helping toss the crowd surfers over the barricade, just thanking the security guy can do a lot of things for you. Like, first of all, it's just courteous. Like, this guy helped move probably people who are way heavier and bigger than you over to, you know, safety or whatever. Depending on the show, sometimes these guys just get worked to the bone. It's just like one surfer after another, after another, after another, and they get no breaks, and it's just constant heavy lifting of people who are like flailing around and acting crazy. So thanking the security guy is just a nice thing to do, especially if you are one of the crowd surfers who has gone around and around and around and around and crowd surfed dozens of times during one set. And this person is trying to look out for you, keep you safe, and not drop you on your head, and make sure the crowd doesn't drop you on your head. So yeah, thanking the security person is definitely just a nice thing to do. But also, if you are in the crowd near the barricade and if you show some kind of kindness to the security guy, likely he will show kindness back to you. And so I've gotten a couple things at concerts. I've gotten this set list from Coheed and Cambria. I've also gotten this guitar pick from Guar, and basically it was because the security guy helped me out. Basically, after a band is done with their set, if the band didn't throw out all their drumsticks and all their set lists and all their picks, the roadies or the security guys who are, you know, cleaning up everything will then throw them to the audience. And so a lot of the times, sometimes, you know, things get thrown. If it's a ball of paper, you can try and throw it pretty hard, but it doesn't always make it over the barricade. A lot of times it'll fall in the grass right off the end of the stage, and the security guy will pick it up. Or if it's a pick, picks don't really fly very easily sometimes, and so a lot of times the things that you want will fall in the grass on the other side of the barricade that you can't reach. And the only people who can reach it are the security people. And so if you are nice to the security person, it's much more likely that they will pick up the set list or the pick or whatever it is and hand it to the person who is nicest to them. So yeah, that's I think mostly how I got my Coheed and Cambria set list, is because my husband was helping out the security guy so much during the show, because it was just crowd surfer after crowd surfer. And my husband's a pretty, you know, big, strong dude, and so he was helping the security guy a lot. And so at the end of the show, you know, there was one set list left that, you know, they didn't realize that they hadn't taken down yet. And so the security guy handed it to me, because I think just because he was thankful for my husband being there to help him out. Of course, it's not to be expected that just because you're nice to the security guy that you get stuff, but I mean, why not? It's a good practice to get into, and you never know, you might get something. And finally, I'm going to talk about probably maybe the more controversial part of crowd surfing, and that is, in my personal opinion, I believe that some people should not crowd surf. And the wonderful thing about, you know, Metalheads is, like, if you want to crowd surf, Metalheads will get you to crowd surf. Like, if you are just a massive person, if you want to crowd surf, likely the only place that you're going to find people willing to lift you up and force you over the top of people's heads are other metalheads, because we're crazy and we don't give a shit. And that's fantastic. That's wonderful. And also, I've seen really cool pictures of like people in wheelchairs crowd surfing, which is amazing. And I'm all for that and everything. But I do think that there should be a line drawn somewhere where you are just too heavy to crowd surf. I'm not exactly sure what weight limit, is, like, in my opinion, too heavy, but I don't know. I'm just gonna give like an arbitrary number of maybe like 250 pounds. Like, if you are more than 250 pounds, I don't think you should crowd surf, in my opinion. The likelihood of getting dropped when you are that heavy is way more likely than if you are less than that weight. And you have to know that you are not in control of whose heads you get pushed over to crowd surf over. Sometimes you'll hit a pocket of really small people, really small women who are not very strong and who physically cannot carry you, who can't carry that amount of weight. And so, yeah, I think it's just courteous that if you are upwards of 250-pound person, whether that's like fat weight or whether that's muscle weight, doesn't matter. If you are that heavy, I think it's just courteous to not crowd surf and not potentially hurt someone. But at the same time, I know it's like, if your goal in life, if your like bucket list thing is like, I want to crowd surf, that's just something you've always wanted to do and you just want to fulfill that kind of life dream that you've had, or that aspiration. I understand, like, okay, so let's say that you are more than 250 pounds and it is like your goal in life to crowd surf. That's just something you want to cross off your bucket list and it just looks so fun to you. It's something that you want to experience in life. I think maybe there's a way you could do it. Crowd surfing is crowd surfing no matter how far you go. I don't think you have to go super far to experience the fun, exhilarating experience that is crowd surfing. So if you are just a heavy person and you really, really want to crowd surf, I would say my suggestion for you would be to just get like 4 or 5, just get like 5 strong dudes, find a place where it looks like there are a number of strong dudes, or just big dudes who look like they can carry you, and go a super, super short distance. Tap all these guys on the shoulders, make sure the people in front of them know that you're coming, and just go a short distance and just set yourself up with a bunch of strong people who look like they can carry you. Yeah, I get wanting to crowd surf and experience that in your life, but I think you have to plan it accordingly so that you don't get hurt and so that, the other people don't get hurt as well. So, yeah, that's my advice for heavier crowd surfers. Hey, so while I was editing this video, I realized there's a couple things that I forgot to mention. One of them being basically how to crowd surf, like how to actually get up there and ask someone to hoist you up. Basically, kind of the universal signal for asking someone to help you crowd surf is basically you just tap someone on the shoulder, and then once you get their attention, you point at yourself, and then you just go like this. And that's basically just the universal signal of I want up. And that's just basically how you ask someone to help you up. The other thing I forgot to mention was that when you crowd surf, wherever you are in the crowd, you're not going to keep that spot. So if you have a pretty decent spot up front and you want to keep that spot, it's not likely you're going to be able to get back up to the front after crowd surfing. So crowd surfing, you go all the way to the front, you go over the barrier, and then security will kind of lead you around the other side so that you go all the way to the back of the crowd. So if you're with other people, you might have a difficult time finding your way back to that spot in the crowd that you had, or finding your people again. So just know that crowd surfing is a way that you might get separated from your people, and it's not always possible to kind of worm your way back to the place in the crowd that you were before. So yeah, that's just something to know, I think. That is all for this video. If you have any advice for crowd surfing, drop that down in the comments, or any stories you want to share about crowd surfing, or if you got hurt by a crowd surfer or something crazy happened. I'm curious to know all of those fun stories. Please drop those down in the comments, and also hit subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, my next video will probably be on festivals, so let me know down in the comments as well any advice that you think I should include in my next video in this series, which will be about going to metal festivals. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Until next time.